Damn, governing body. Damn. You guys got some nerve. It just baffles me that you continue to tell witnesses that have questions or do anything outside of what you want them to do that they're being brazen. And yet, you guys are brazen enough to declare that you know who the King of the North is. And to encourage other people to believe that you guys believe you know what you're talking about the King of the North. And you know why that's brazen to me? Because when you do that, you're sitting there comparing yourself to Daniel, who was an actual prophet of God. See the difference? If you guys are watching this, and if you Jehovah's Witnesses are watching this, you need to understand the comparison here. When the governing body, when you guys, if you guys are watching, say that you think you know who the King of the North is to the point where you guys are willing to proclaim that you know who it is, even though you guys weren't bold enough to put it in your book, probably because you guys don't want to be wrong again like you were before about the King of the North and all this Ezekiel stuff. You guys are comparing yourselves to prophets. And we know what Deuteronomy 18:20-22 says about false prophets. Witnesses, if you're listening, you need to go and read that scripture. Deuteronomy 18:20-22. Because Watchtower is sitting here saying that we are confident, after prayerful consideration, that Russia is the new King of the North. You have no right to even suggest that. Because you guys are sitting there taking Daniel's prophecy and saying that you can further interpret what a prophet ordained by Jehovah himself, or God, or whatever you want to call him, spoke of. You can't do that. I was watching a video by Bridget from Arizona, and I was watching this the other day, and she does a lot of great videos where she, calls not governing body members, but she calls various kingdom halls and calls the branch and the service committees and all these other people, and she, she has a lot of great points, a lot of really, quick, fast, quick-witted, boom points. It's so funny because, witnesses and elders, they have no flippin' clue what they're in for when they pick up the phone and she's like, "Oh, hi." Like, they have no clue, like you have no idea what you're in for. If you were smart, hang up and run, because you're about to get schooled. Well, she made a call in one of her videos to, I think it was a Kingdom Hall. And I think she was talking to an elder, and she basically said, she made the point, and I looked it up, and sure enough, she had a good point. Because she said, well, you can't say you're spirit directed, but not inspired. You can't have your cake and eat it too. That's kind of the same thing. And she's right. The prophets of God were spirit directed. If you look up directed, it's almost the same thing as inspired. Or if you look up inspired, that's almost the same thing as directed. So it's kind of wordplay for the society to say, well, we're not inspired. We're not infallible. We're just spirit directed, so you still got to do what we say because we know Jehovah's directing us because we said Jehovah's directing us, so you better do what we tell you to do. But that doesn't make any sense. Because like she said, you can't have both. You can't say, oh, well, we're being directed by Jehovah, so you better do what we tell you to do. But we're not inspired. No, you either are or you aren't. So when the governing body brazenly, remember, elders, when you told me that I was being brazen because I wanted to actually think for myself? Remember when you told me that I was being brazen? Well, you know what? Your governing body's actually being brazen. And like I said, if you're watching this, governing body, you guys are the ones that are brazen. You guys are brazen enough to enforce doctrine that you can't back up, make people sacrifice their lives for it, disfellowship them if they don't obey. That's about as brazen as it gets to me. Yeah. And you're also brazen enough to stand up and say that you know who the King of the North is through prayerful consideration, even though you have no way to back that up or to prove that, because you're not Daniel. You see, Daniel came able to back that up. That is, if Daniel ever existed, because archaeological and historical, evidence suggests that he probably never existed, but that's beside the point. Let's say if Daniel was an actual biblical character who did actually exist in, archaeology and history, which is a story for another day, then he was a prophet of God, a true prophet of God. He came with signs. He came able to read the writings on the wall. He came with actual prophecy that didn't come back and fail, that didn't come back and have to be corrected, because it was inspired by Jehovah. You see the difference, governing body? You've already had to change your belief about who Gog of Magog is. That means you don't know what you're talking about. That means Jehovah has not directed you. Because if he did, if he was directing you then and he's directing you now, then that means that he gave you a wrong interpretation of who Gog of Magog is. And now he's giving you a different one. So the honest thing to say, governing body, is that you don't know. Because you're not inspired. Because you're not the prophet Daniel. Because you're not a prophet of God. And because you're not spirit directed. You can't claim to be spirit directed and change your doctrine and enforce doctrines through fear and coercion, ones that can't be backed up in proper scriptural context. You guys are playing on words. So this is my fourth message to you guys. And I hope you Jehovah's Witnesses are watching this, and I hope some of you guys are waking up. Okay? There are reasons for why we are so angry and pissed off at the governing body. It's not because we're just angry apostates. It's because we are seeing things that are wrong and we're calling them out because we're tired of it. Because it's ruined our lives. We've had to get disfellowshipped over this and lose our families. Over stuff that is wrong from people who are not spirit directed but claim it and compare themselves by spitting out prophecy to prophets, actual prophets. So in the words of Bridget from AZ, governing body, it's the same thing, and you can't have your cake and eat it too.